Hello, welcome back to She. Hi, Joelle, how are you?
Hello, Valentina. I am great. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Today, we're talking about something so many women experience but often feel afraid to admit. What should a woman reasonably expect after sex? Should it text the next day? Should the communication stay the same? And if it suddenly becomes distant, are you overthinking or are you responding to a genuine shift in his behavior? So, sex doesn't entitle anyone to a relationship, and we know this, but it also doesn't erase the basic respect, communication, and consideration that existed before the intimacy. So, today we're exploring the difference between having healthy expectations and seeking reassurance, between noticing an actual change in someone's behavior and allowing one quiet day to activate an old abandonment wound. Because the bigger question is not just why hasn't he texted me? It is, does his behavior after we connected, after intimacy, match the connection and intention he showed me before it? So this is juicy. I cannot wait to jump on this topic. Joel, tell me. Let's start. Let's dive in.
Okay. So let's talk about that because, obviously we are piggybacking off of last week and part two will be dropping this Friday, but let's talk about that for a minute because we were talking about can sex turn into love?
Yes,
Okay, so we're going
absolutely.
to piggyback off that.
Yeah.
So what is the expectation? I think personally the expectation varies. I think it varies depending on well you're when you're a male or a female.
Yeah.
I also because we also talked about that the way women and men bond. And with that being said, I do believe in my own experience, anytime that I was intimate with a man, even though I may have come off maybe thinking I didn't have very many expectations at first, if it was in the very beginning and we didn't identify the status of the relationship, but I can assure you, my body had other expectations of what I expected.
Before going into this episode, should we, because you just briefly touched the point, the bonding, should we say it again, Rita? Because I really like how you explain the difference,
Sure.
truly
Yeah.
like in chemicals that happen in women and men. Please.
Yeah, let's recap on that. So we know it's scientifically proven men and women are totally built different. We
Yep.
communicate different, we bond different, and women, we let off the love hormone when we are with other women, when we are intimate with men, when we nurse, when we have friendships, it's automatic that oxytocin is produced. So that's a love hormone. So even though if we don't feel a connection, our body and our nervous system does. Men, on the other hand, they're like testosterone, the hunter, the one that's hunting after the prey, and so they have the testosterone. Well, when they accomplish that or they kill the buck or doe, shall we say, their testosterone drops.
Yeah.
It's natural. And normally men will then kind of pull back because they've accomplished. This is subconscious, but actually it's really what's happening in the bonding for a male. So men bond by a vasopressin. Vasopressin happens over time. So this isn't the way we bond. And this is where the issue comes in about expectations in having being intimate after. A male will bond over time of maybe going away because his testosterone drops and then coming forward after he maybe goes into his man cave and processes differently. And okay, that's acceptable if it's communicated. But
Yeah.
if it's not communicated and they just ghost,
Ghost.
that's not because that's showing the woman's nervous system who's bonding already that kicking in her abandonment wounds,
Yeah, and
kicking
she
in her
can relax.
attachment
She can feel
style.
safe. Exactly. She can't.
Right. So the thing is like a male needs to also come forth in that vasopressin and feel safe, to feel that commitment, to feel peace, to come back in, to feel understood and okay. But at the same time, this is why communication is key. Even if you're starting out, which everybody starts out casual, nobody jumps in to say, hey, this is gonna
We're gonna
work.
get engaged tomorrow.
That's, we don't live in those days
No,
anymore.
not
You know what I
anymore.
mean? Unfortunately, we don't, because um, that was a beautiful time of life that we have now far surpassed. But if you don't communicate, well, what would be the expectation? Yes, we bond differently. So being emotionally mature and having emotional intellect is knowing that, okay, we bond differently. So there's some understanding there if there's communication. But there has to be mutual respect, that the male also has to understand that although I need to do this, I need to communicate that, because it's going to throw in her nervous system, her childhood wounds, her attachment style. And if I'm being avoidant and she's anxious, this is exactly the dynamic of what happens, and why a lot of relationships never make it past that initial stage, because the communication fails. So, out of respect, with emotional intelligence in this hookup culture that we're living in, I think that expectation should be, we're consenting adults. We've talked about, if you've communicated how you feel, that it should be respected. If you have never had the conversation about what this does to my nervous system and someone doesn't know, okay, maybe they can't be held accountable. But at the same time, where does just decent respect come in for the other person? Um, that to me, it's case by case situation. But if I had to say what's to be expected after having sex, I would say communication,
Absolutely.
even a little communication, not ghosting, because that's just absolutely, first of all, it's immature. It takes the other person now off guard, who's then not going to feel safe. So you're already starting the relationship, or potential for a relationship, on unstable ground. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree because if you start trusting someone and you just like go and start walking that path of getting to know each other with your guards down, and it depends on the person, because some they just go with this armor and walls and like all equipped. But if you go in that way because you trust the person and you believe the words that like you hear, and you listen to the conversation, and then actions don't match at all, what happens that you cannot trust the person, and you don't feel the safety that maybe you felt during the connection, the intimacy. So completely, let's say women, we know how we are, let's not generalize of course, but like who hasn't Google questions, who hasn't called and text millions times a friend or more than one friend to ask, right? Should he text me after sex, for example? And again, there's no universal rule. Like it's not okay, like you should text at this time, at this day at all. But you have to. This is the mind. What does do best fills the blanks. And so, first of all, also to keep you safe, the ego mind with the worst case scenario, you can't, because that's like you could write books. You just need to observe the information you have. So if there's inconsistency between the communication and the style before the event and after, well, of course, that's the issue. It's not the one missing good morning text or whatever. It's whether the level of care and communication changes after he gets access to you intimately. So That's something that totally, I totally agree with you. I mean, of course, yeah.
Well, we live in a culture now where before it used to be, I trust you to show me otherwise. And now it's almost like you have to be, I don't trust you until you show me otherwise, because so
Mhm.
many people have so much armor. So
Yeah.
many people have so much baggage from past relationships, from childhood wounds, from activated nervous systems. But what I have learned, and I know it comes with wisdom. What I knew in my 30s, I didn't know in my 40s. What I knew in my 40s, I didn't know. And now what I know in my 50s, I look back and I address things differently and I come forth differently.
Yeah.
And I do realize that I have realized that communication is key,
Oh, yes.
even if it's like, listen, I find you attractive. And you know what? I just want to have sex with you. I think you're like,
There's
had to
nothing
give a
wrong.
guy, I had
There's
to give a
nothing
guy
wrong.
from California, I'm going to give him actually kudos, because at least he came forth and said, you know what? I'm attracted to you. I want to have sex with you. He was at least upfront and honest, although that was not something I was going to be willing to participate in,
But that's
because
your
I'm at a place
choice.
where, but it's my choice. But at least he didn't come forth telling me, sweet nothings that were never going to be. His actions and his words were lined up. And even though I have no respect for men who lead with sex, I truly don't. I think it's an insecurity. I think it truly is an insecurity. Any man who leads with sex, because they're hiding the intimacy underneath, or you know what I mean? That's another form of a mask. But I do think in the beginning, boundaries should be set. I'm not talking like setting like a barbed wire fence that but I am talking that, listen, this is how you're going to activate my nervous system. If we're together and we have these communications and then we're intimate, and then you don't um reach out or check in. Everybody has lives. It's not coming from a needy place. Now it's coming from, no, I have a boundary. You're activating my nervous system. I'm understanding my past wounds. Instead of reacting to them, I'm not. I'm sitting with the discomfort, but I'm also going to communicate a clear boundary. That's where the self worth and the self value is going to set that boundary, that that's not going to happen again.
Yes.
At that point, the expectation can be, you can meet me where I'm at, or you can go bye bye.
Yeah.
That to me is the expectation, that I personally think is a good way to go, because you're being upfront and honest about your intention from the beginning.
So two things here, and this is we talked about the anxious attachment, the avoidant attachment, the majority of the season one. Cause why? We live in Naples, we're friends, so we go out, we meet so many women, and then like in the community, we have like so many feedbacks, and these are the topics that women, believe it or not, like talk about all the time. And this is so because they want to understand and try to change. So now it's not that you're not gonna get triggered anymore. This is not how it works. Like when you're spiritual and you have to be all positive, it's not how it works. You have positive and negative emotions, you go and flow through all of them. It's about, okay, I know now my inner child and all the wounds and that like I carried in my past relationships. This is how I used to behave. I used to accept breadcrumbs. I used to abandon myself to keep the connection alive. Now that I know and I see and I did the work and I'm embodying the divine and heal feminine, now it's not that I'm not gonna meet bad guys anymore. I wanted to say it, but like it's like I don't want to say bad words. It's of course you will, but how you're gonna respond? Like you're like, okay, these are my standards. These are the things that I'm not gonna accept. So if you're willing to meet halfway, that's fine. Otherwise, I wish you an happy life. I just walk away. I'm not gonna chase.
Right.
Just like, okay, goodbye. And on the we should actually repeat this episode with a male guest, because
Well, we're
it would
going
be
to.
so interesting. So you said usually, and again, there's nothing wrong at this point of my life. I don't judge anyone about anything, because why would I? So it's totally fine if two people, a woman and a man, get to know each other and like, you know what, I'm not ready for something serious, so why don't we just have fun while we focus on ourselves. Listen, you're adults, totally fine, go for it. You know the expectation, you know what to expect. You don't dream about the potential. Of course, I'm talking about women, because this is usually what they do, what we do. So now men usually they go immediately for sex, because they're built in a different way. So now the question that a woman would ask to a friend, or of course to herself at 2 a.m. in the morning, did I sleep with him too soon? Right? So now there's no perfect timeline. You guys, can happen the first date, after 2 weeks, after 3 months, after 1 year, after 1 hour. I mean, we don't know. It's up to you. You have your own
Right.
timeline. But the question is not that one. You should rephrase and ask a better question. Did I choose intimacy because it felt right, it felt aligned? So, girl, do your thing. Or because
Right.
I was hoping it would, right? You go for it and have fun. Or because I was hoping it would secure the connection, because that's a completely different question. And that's when you don't want to do it, but you do it because, and then you start abandoning yourself. Regardless of when it happened, you don't need to punish, or you don't need to shame yourself, because again, you do something at a specific, that there's no past, there's no future, we only live the present moment. So if right now I'm in a situation where I choose this instead of that, and then after a few hours or the day after, let's not judge ourselves, because that we acted based on what we felt right at the moment, and
Yeah.
that's also a version of us. We're so many versions,
Well,
and the
correct.
acceptance,
Yeah.
right? Exactly.
But also with that, when we understand truly the way life is, okay, people that come in our life, when you can look at things, and we talked about this, right? When you come in and you start to really be able to understand everything's an experience, nobody's forever. And when you could try to come into something from a place of detachment, and it's very hard because we have those wounds, we have those needs, we have those nervous systems, but come into it and try to say, some people are meant to come in our life not for love, but for growth. Because if they don't come in and they don't do these things that kick in or activate our nervous system or our wounds, that's how we evolve to say, okay, here we are again. I'm in the same situation, and you surely will be. The same relationship patterns will consistently happen until you break it.
Yeah.
So, this is part of this whole evolution of relationships, souls, communication, our nervous system, everything we've been building on, everything we've been talking about from season one. But it comes down to, if we still bring those people in energetically, right? And we react the same way, then we're still on that level of, okay, we still have wounds to maybe look at of, why am I attracting from my wound? Why am I responding from and reacting from my wound? Or they come in and now we're activated. People were always going to get activated. Okay. We're human. We're not robots. It's human connection.
Absolutely.
But we are now going to react differently. We're activated in this. We had some. expectations of what we expected for ourselves, and that comes into your self-worth and your value of yourself of what you expect. It's not even the other person. So if you expect someone to treat you with respect, then we have to treat ourselves that way first by saying, okay, this isn't okay with me, and I'm going to set a boundary. Then you're going to wean out those lessons, those karmic relationships a lot quicker. That's really what it's about. It's
Yeah.
not even about um what to expect. It's like, what do we expect from ourselves? It always still comes down to that. What do we expect from ourselves? If we expect someone to respect us after being intimate and communicate and they don't, then it comes down to, it's not a matter of what they did, it's a matter of what are we going to do with it now.
You said it correctly because it depends on the frequency you're vibrating at. So if
Hmm.
you're me still, it's not that again, you're not gonna get triggered anymore. But if you're still surrounded by all those people that trigger you, like trigger you, yeah, like you're still at that frequency. You can totally by working on you, and there are a few tips that we can give, because like when you feel like activated and you're just like by yourself without like anyone else around, like you just feel it in your body, the breath is key. I always what I do,
Yes.
so I'm gonna share, I always use the breath to come back home. And when you feel that the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, you just feel like relaxed and nothing, like the word is ending here, like you come back to your heart, and everything is fine. You can hum because the vibration like activates the vagus nerve. I listen to music because I mean the frequency sound, like for me is just like pure magic, and it's such a medicine. But like you also have to understand that, and you need to recognize the patterns, and that's what we do. If you work with us, you go back and you have to reprogram. So when you see the yourself, you live this sort of the same situation, you react in a different way, or you don't react at
Right.
all. You don't react at all
How
because
can you Right. How can you
yeah.
see your growth, right? How can you see your growth and how can you understand and be repatterned and go through this if these people don't come in and do this? The key to it is this is what have zero expectations for anyone else because you're going to get disappointed. The only thing you can have is expectations for you, what you expect of someone to treat you.